Welcome to Lead Live, reminding you of your personal genius and how you think in order to actualize what you desire.
Hello, brilliant people. It's an honor to be here, to be able to be vertical, to be able to communicate, to be able to think, to be able to act, to be able to feel. It leads to my actions, to be able to contribute in whatever way possible, in a way that complements you, adds to the quality of your life, helps to inform your own critical thinking, importantly, helps to enable you to lean in, continue to move forward in the way that complements you, your overall well-being. Today's topic is leaders developing leaders. And I want to tell you something. As I think about this topic today, I think about the topic last week, and the topic was on people skills essential to leading, and discussed a lot here on that matter. Today, we're going to talk about how leaders do what humbly I believe is the primary role of a leader, and that is to develop leaders. So what does it mean to develop leaders? Well, first of all, let me back up a little bit, because most of us think of leaders in this traditional way, maybe less so now, but historically, as someone who comes in and says, this is the vision, follow me, I'm going to take you to the promised land. Now, of course, CEOs don't necessarily call it the promised land. They may feel it. We're going to achieve this massive, whatever it is, this massive goal, this massive mission, and it's going to knock everything out the water. We will be the top in the industry. We will literally just deforest everything, and we will emerge as the greatness that we are as an organization. I'm talking about a different kind of leader, a leader that is not thinking about eliminating, a leader that's thinking about adding, being additive in all conversations, in all processes. A leader that is not just embracing the organization vision, that allows everyone to fit in it. It's big enough, it's grand enough. But a leader that says if the vision really doesn't add value to the greater, and then you can fill that in, whether it's community, society, the planet, then we should consider how we change it as a unit, as a full team. A leader that is looking to ensure the sustainability of that organization because of the good that it does. And it adds value all the time. That's what I'm talking about. A leader that says we can be the greatest and the best, yet a leader who says there's enough room for a lot of greats. A leader that says, I'm here to facilitate in you the greatness that I see. I have experienced a little bit of self in the self, or a lot in the self, which enables me to see the greatness in you. My goodness. Wouldn't you want to follow her? Wouldn't you want to follow him? Better yet, wouldn't you want to follow them? A leader says that everyone within the organization is important, without exception, independent of their historical performance. Makes me think about one of my mentors who used this hourglass as a powerful symbol of our reality. And what did Bob Proctor say? He said, this is our past life, all the sand that's gone through there. That's our past life. We get to leverage some of those experiences as the foundation on which we move forward. And yet, if we stay stuck in the past, we will never even be able to imagine the future. And yet we don't have the future. We have just what's happening now. We have the current moment that we're in. So, what does a leader do? A leader literally says, we have this moment in time to leverage whatever work that we can bring forward, to learn from whatever didn't work, so that we can remove that from the equation and aspire to something great that actually adds remarkable value. So, we're biased here at Lead Live, and LEAD standing for Leadership Excellence and Achievement on Demand. We firmly believe that everyone has leadership capacity. In fact, we go further. We believe that everyone should be CEO of her or his life. What does that mean practically? Yeah, all the things that we imagine of an extraordinary, of a stellar leader of a corporation, of an institution of higher learning, of a community-based organization, of a municipal entity, of elected officials. Everything that we expect of someone running any kind of small or large organization, we expect of each individual. And some of you are probably thinking, what do you mean by that? We don't have a lot of, things. We don't have a lot of resources. We don't have, a building. We don't have a lot of employees, or we have no employees. Or how can we function as a CEO when we don't have those things? Or what is the genius of an extraordinary or even a very good CEO, which stands for Chief Executive Officer? Some people say it's Chief Enthusiastic Officer. Some people say it's Chief Educational Officer. There's all kinds of ways to convey the individual who's leading that particular entity. Well, you're leading your body in terms of what it thinks, how it responds to what it's thinking. Or not only that, in terms of what it receives and how it responds to what it receives. Are you an empty vessel being filled, and then your emotions respond accordingly, and then you act, and then you get results, and some results you don't like? Or are you a fully equipped vessel, the capacity, literally, to take all the stuff you get in through your sensory faculties and distill what serves you, what edifies you, even if it's so-called fact? If it doesn't edify you, why consume it? Which is your critical faculty is telling you, no, it doesn't work, don't receive it. If it edifies you, receive it. So that's what we mean by being the CEO of your lives, is literally understanding your capacity to receive and also to create. If we're nothing else as humans, we are extraordinary creators. Well, I humbly believe we come from a creator, whatever we call that creator. A creator that is all knowing, all doing. We come from it, we're part of it, we return to it. CEO. We're in these temples for whatever period of time. And I always encourage us to be in tune with the temple. Not only are we thinking clearly, are we consuming other things, nutrition that actually edifies all the organs in the body. It allows for the brain to think more clearly. Are we moving in a way to allow our organs, the energy that just is constantly moving through our body, the vibration, are we allowing the vibratory patterns to reveal the vision that we have for our lives? Or do we have vision that's out of sync with the vibratory patterns of our body? I know I'm going off a little bit, but there's a point. Are we literally in sync with what's happening in terms of our mental faculties, the conscious, subconscious mind? Conscious mind, are we conscious of what's happening at the emotional, subconscious level? Are we conscious of what we're doing physically, what we're feeling emotionally? Are we conscious about how we navigate the world around us? Two people, imagine, born to the same mother, with the same birth father. Imagine, brilliant, beautiful infants, they grow, everyone just looks and adores them. One's a boy, one's a girl. Beautiful. And they begin to share. And the boy, they say, oh my God, look at those eyes, look at that hair, look at that. Oh, listen to that voice. Oh, great. Up until the age of 4. The girl, they keep doing it. And then in the meantime, both children are harmed because some of the adults around are like, ugh, you're a throwaway kid, you're not worthy, etc. So they begin to get these contradictory messages. So initially they're beautiful. They look like they're going to be massively awesome. And then all of a sudden they're perceived differently as they get older and harmed emotionally, physically, and otherwise. One grows up in that circumstance and believes the messaging, I'm not worthy, I can't do. The other one grows up in that environment and says the adults are nuts. How do I get out of this and save myself? And they take 2 different tracks. 2 brilliant. Arguably, the boy is more brilliant than the girl. The boy ends up in prison most of his life, in and out. Whether he should be there or not is a different question. One could argue one time he's in prison. Absolutely not. The girl goes on to aspire. Their mindset, their mental models were different about themselves. One bought nonsense. The other one thought the stuff was absolutely nonsensical. The power of each one of us to literally take in stuff and choose. Are we choosing? So, no, I haven't steered too far from leaders. Leadership, an effective leader, literally is mindful of how much and what she takes in, how she uses what she uses. I'll say the same thing for every male. I'm female, I'm speaking from a female perspective. And talking about many females I've had the honor of working with, observing, learning from. And this is Herstory Month, or History Month for women. And I want us to remember as women, and I want our male colleagues, family members, loved ones, I want you all to remember the power of women to choose to be the CEO of her life, just like you. Every one of us, from childhood all the way into adulthood. So when a leader is doing that for herself, she can more easily translate that to those that she's serving, who may be reporting to her, who are reporting to her. A leader is a leader best defined as one who develops leaders. So yes, a corporate leader in particular does what? Creates an inspiring vision, shared values, lead change, lead by example, demonstrates confidence, empowers and energizes through inspirational talks, engagement, transactions, incentives, encourages through, again, monitoring and providing feedback. Yet a leader does much more when she understands her number one responsibility is to develop leaders. And so you may be thinking, oh, so leaders, the person who's delivering my mail is a leader? Absolutely. Person who's cleaning the streets, a leader? Absolutely. A person who is at the telephone pole ensuring that the wiring is appropriate and people can leverage their telephones? Absolutely. Person who's an advisor to students? Without a doubt. A person who is in the back office taking care of the IT infrastructure as a leader? Absolutely. A person who's working in City Hall and taking complaints and managing them, making certain they get to the right elected officials is a leader? Absolutely. I want us to dispel this notion that leaders are only in a certain position. We ideally would recognize that all of us are leaders throughout society, across this planet. And I got to tell you, change would happen like that. When we honor ourselves in a way that leads to healthy engagement with the self, we're more likely to lead to healthy engagement with the other. And the nonsensical wars, yes, I said it, the nonsensical wars that happen, it harms so many individuals, families, and the rest of us, they would be no more. And I don't believe that I'm out of touch with reality. I do believe there's a reason why we have wars. There's a reason why we have challenges, to say lesser than wars. There are reasons why we have barriers and constraints, etc. I think it's the opportunity for us, or firmly, I believe it's the opportunity for us to learn and to ensure no more. And then to elevate beyond where we're at, because we're not going to be perfect in this life. I think that's part of the human condition, is to recognize that we're not perfect. As leaders, the more I learn, for example, the more I realize I don't know. And that's why I'm continuously learning. I love learning. Sometimes it's very uncomfortable because it reminds me of what I don't know and what I'm not doing that's aligned with purely with my values. So I'm not 100% living with integrity every single day, all day long. And yet I strive for that. I was talking with someone yesterday, a brilliant person, a colleague who I've just met recently. And she made a statement, and I don't recall the exact statement. And my reaction was, no, 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 no. And the statement suggested that we got to have it all before we move forward. I firmly disagree. In fact, if we have it all, I'm not certain we would be here as humans. We transition out. Whether we're 5 years old, 18 years old, 20 years old, 40 years old, 95 years old, 116, we would transition out because we've done what we're supposed to do, humbly speaking. So I firmly believe that the challenges we had in all of our lives, whether we consider ourselves as the CEO of our lives or we're just literally blindly walking through life and hoping that things work out, those challenges are to get us to wake up, pay attention. Whether we're standing or in a wheelchair or we're lying down, to literally get a clue and recognize that we get to be the change that we want to see now. And we also recognize some other things that are fundamental. And I'm going to go off script in a second or for a moment. As humans, we have this delusion that somehow we're the most special species on the planet. We don't watch it, the earth will just take us off the planet, just dump us, because we can be among the most poisonous aspect of this planet. So the earth will just get rid of us. Let's just be clear about that. We're not all that. The other thing that we have a tendency of doing is of believing that because, I'll personalize it, I'm Black, I'm Latina, I'm Native American, I have European ancestry at some point, I've got other ancestry I don't know about, whatever I'm ultimately from the continent of Africa in terms of my ancestry and all that. I'm all that. When we assume that somehow our selves are greater than the sum total of the rest of us, we really have missed the mark. So it really doesn't matter how I look, how I present myself. I have a fundamental belief that we're all one. And we need each other. Even if we don't want each other, we need each other. We're inherently reliant on the other. Yes, we can go out and into the mountains, into the forest, and we can learn how to live there for a spell. Quite frankly, someone on the other part of the planet, if they hit a button and blows everything up, then we realize how interconnected we really are. So the need to lean forward to understand, to seek to understand as a leader is critical. And leading others or developing others to be leaders, so essential that they see that modeled all the time. They understand how to go about the process of getting out of their comfort zone to do it. And one thing I tell people, they say, "Well, what formula, what process we should use to make the transformation we want to make, to be the person we want to transform, to be more successful." Da, da, da. There's all kinds of things you can do. Let me tell you, the most important thing to do is to pick up your foot, to move your body one step at a time, whether it's metaphorically or literally, because not everybody can physically walk. Let's be clear. And yet there's folks who are immobile, who are walking faster or moving faster or leaning in more intensely than some of us who can walk, who are so-called able-bodied. We're not, because we don't have the able mind. And that's really what I want to talk about most of the time here today. This is about leaders, developing leaders. And yet, if we don't know how to help individuals change the paradigm that defines the nature of who they are, I don't care how brilliant we think we are, those individuals will get a lot of great information and they'll appreciate it and they'll honor that person and they'll be so excited by her. And then they'll still be where they were when they began their interaction with her, whoever she is, for that matter, whoever he is. And yet they want to move forward. And whether it's fear, whether it's a lack of understanding of how to do it, whether it's not being able to see themselves, imagine themselves in it, I'm foreshadowing some of the things I want you to pay attention to. So let's jump ahead and say, first of all, let's be clear about what we want. I talk with a lot, I try to listen to, yet I do talk with a lot of people. And one of the questions I ask you, independent of whether they're asking me for a solution, a financial solution, or they're asking me for a leadership solution that's independent of their financial well-being as an organization or as an individual, I ask them, what do you want? And it's amazing how many people know what they want. It shouldn't be amazing. There are a lot of folks who don't. But it's amazing how people know what they want, and yet they don't have it. That's the amazing part. And it's not when you understand that knowing what you want and having it are not the same. Being absolutely thoughtful, writing it down, and being clear about what you want and having it are not the same thing. There's a missing factor. And when I ask a different question, they're like, oh. I said, how do you feel about it? And most of the time, there's a blank stare. There's no answer. How do you feel about what you want? How do you feel about that vision you've written down? How do you feel about that plan that is so meticulously presented in a document? And it's almost like, what does feelings have to do with it? And folks, feelings have everything to do with it. And there's authors, presenters, much more remarkable than I, without a doubt, women and men who've conveyed this throughout time. If you don't have a burning desire for whatever it is that you say you want, you're not likely going to achieve it. If somebody can give it to you, let me be very clear, you can win the lottery. And you won't have it for long. It'll be gone in 4 or 5 years. We've got so much research on people winning millions of dollars, and it's gone. In fact, they're in debt because they never had the right kind of emotional connection to it, nor did they really have the appropriate mental mindset that allowed them to be that millionaire. They're still that poor, or that person who didn't have, or in that mind state of lacking. We call it a fixed mindset. They didn't grow. They just need to understand how to move from the fixed mindset to growth mindset. Most importantly, that mindset has to be something that they feel, a heartfelt connection. So let's stop for a moment. Paradigm shift. This is a lovely visual that I borrow, and it just gives you a sense of paradigm. We all live in a paradigm. We have a paradigm of certain values. And if we don't watch it, we're going to live the rest of our lives with those values. There are people in their 80s, 90s, and older, bless them, Their contemporaries are not even around any longer. So they have no reason to hold those old values. And those values, they would even say, I remember one who told me this, never served her. But she did it because her mother, her father, the elders around her told her that was the way it was supposed to be. She never released it. And I remember her demanding that I be engaged in a certain behavior. I'm like, why? She said, well, I don't want you to be alone like me. I said, well, what's the deal? You live in Atherton. It's beautiful. You got this grand home. You know, it's multi-million-dollar estate, and you worked here, and you've done all this wonderful stuff all over the planet. Yeah, but I never took the time to value me, to honor me. I got the things, yet I didn't get the internal love. I got the things, I never had the level of self-respect. I got the things, but I didn't drive my life. I let the values of others drive me. I got the things. So we want you to understand, moving from one paradigm where it's core set of values that you've adopted, even if you don't know, when you illuminate those values and you look at them, they're in writing, you say, oh my God, it's exactly what I want. Oh my goodness, no. Then you've got to literally make a shift. If something does not get you what you want, what you've envisioned, you envision this and you want this, they're aligned and yet you're not to this, and you're not likely to get there unless you have a burning desire and you literally shift from this paradigm, wherever you're at, wherever it is, to this paradigm. Now, let me just say something. There's no value judgment we have here. You get to live, each one of us gets to live the way we want within certain constraints, societal constraints. This is not illegal, doesn't harm another. We get to be who we want to be. I say, be the best you. Lean in, because you can. What's the point of life if not growth to aspire and to actually achieve? So what's the next thing? Paradigm. What is it? It's a mental program that is almost exclusive control over habitual behavior. And almost all of our behavior is habitual. Some of you, especially if you're my age, 60s or older, have heard this, where we humans not our habits. That's true. There's much more. And so by definition, we change the habits, we get to change who we are. Not at our core, we get to get closer to who we are at our core when we change our habits. In the absence of clearly defined goals, become strangely loyal to performing daily trivia until we ultimately become enslaved by it. That's the remarkable professional I met many years ago. Brilliant, beautiful, and had all the outer traits of accomplishment and success. And yet internally was humble enough to say, I never got there because I never allowed myself to go within, to be the leader that I could be. Yeah, outwardly, I'm a leader, but internally, no. This is a visual that I really would like to spend just a few moments on. So we want something, we want that result. We desire something, we need to have a burning desire. How do we have the burning desire at the emotional level? Well, it has to be in sync. If we have a vision that's not ours, we're not likely to have an emotional desire unless it's aligned with what is of our own desire. So when you look at this visual, I want you to ask yourself what you see, other than what looks to be a stick figure. And some of you may have seen this before. You may have already seen this before. So on the left, we have what we call a stick figure. And it literally lets us know that we tend to take in things through our sensory faculties, where it is see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. And that dictates how we interact with the world. If it tastes good, if it smells good, if it looks good, it must be good. There's a lot of things that smell, taste, and look good are actually harmful. They're toxic. So the question is, are we using our intellectual skills, our thinking skills, to determine what serves us or what does not? And there's a number of researchers, a number of stellar professionals previously and even currently residing on this planet, still alive, and they say that the majority of us do not think, we just do. We react. We do not think to respond. We react to the world around us. We get the bombardment of all the programming and we react. So paradigm shift says, here's what the deal is. We're in this paradigm and it served us. Perhaps it got us to where we're at. That's good. Like my friend, it got her to where she was. She needed to move to a new paradigm. So we get to move to a new paradigm. And let me tell you, in my short life, I moved to many paradigms over my life. When I was an infant, I'm sure I had one paradigm that I wasn't conscious of. As I became conscious, I began to look at the world around me and say, nope, this doesn't work for me. How do I shift out of it? I don't even know why I'm here. I must have decided on this at the spiritual level. Yes, I was thinking like that as a kid. Can you believe that? I can. And a lot of kids do until it's programmed out of them. Point. Think about that. You hear your children say things and you're like, oh my God, that's like an adult. No, honor it that it is what a child does. And then I became a teenager. Then I became a young adult. Then I became an, so-called middle age. Then I became an older adult. And if I'm fortunate, if it's supposed to be, I'll become an elder, really. At each one of those transitions, I remember shifting. I didn't know we call it paradigm, yet literally where you clarify your values. Some of them may be the same, others may change, or they may all be the same, yet the behavior changes to fit the new expectations. As I've achieved goals, I literally change the trajectory. And it meant literally changing my mindset to move into a different frame. So I'm in higher education. It took me a while to get a rhythm going. Some people say, no, you always had it. Well, they didn't know what was going on internally. It took a while to get a rhythm going. I got the rhythm going and I just kept moving up, kept moving up. It wasn't surprising that I became a college president. It wasn't surprising if I had done much more than that, which I had. Then I retired and I thought, okay, this is quite curious. And then I created a business, became an entrepreneur, yet I was already an entrepreneur. So I leveraged what had already occurred and then thought about what my new vision is, then created it so it can be achieved. And then once it's all achieved, then I create a new set of priorities and I determine if I need to change some habits, if I needed to leave one paradigm and move into another. So I moved from higher education to financial education. Different environment, different industry, different paradigm. And so one could say when someone goes from the leading in terms of just positional leadership and having position power to leading because you want to lead everyone in a space where they're developing into leaders, that's a paradigm shift. So what worked in the other model probably didn't work fully. But whatever worked will not likely work when you're looking at everyone with whom you work. You're using different language, with whom you work, rather than those who work for you. You're moving to a different paradigm. So how do you do that? When you look at this visual, and I'm sorry, I had it up here longer than I've talked about it. What we have here is a notion of the mind being the upper part of the body. Let me be very clear. The mind is not just in the head. The mind is in every cell of the body, and we know scientifically it actually vibrates the energy, it emits vibration outside of the body. So scientists really don't know where the mind rests. Yet, for this example, we're saying the mind is split into a conscious mind, the thinking mind, and the subconscious mind, the emotional or the feeling mind. Now, what's the powerful aspect of this? And that is that it's the feeling mind that gets us almost all the time, until and unless we begin to think. So I said earlier, many people say most people don't think, they just start talking. And you listen to what they say, you realize this person really isn't thinking. Because any rational person who's thinking, they wouldn't say what they said. Certainly not in the way they've done it. So The key thing is we want to encourage people to move into this notion of using mental tools. And the mental tools are over here to the right, where you see, we call them mental faculties: memory, perception, will, imagination, reason, and intuition. We'll talk about two of those in just a second. The power of using these mental tools is to create a completely different habit consciously, using the intellectual mind, the decision-making mind. The conscious mind decides. The subconscious mind just does whatever it's told. Literally. You tell it to go right, even though rationally it should go left, it will go right. You tell it to go backwards, even though it should go forward, it goes back. The subconscious mind does whatever you tell it to do. So if one is not thinking, they're going to do whatever the crowd does or whatever anyone does. And as a leader leading people and helping to develop all those people into leaders, you don't want folks to do that. You want to remind them of their thinking faculties, their decision-making faculties, their ability to take in from their sensory inputs, but also through their intellectual capacity, and then decide on a new habit and press it on the subconscious mind in order to shift the way one acts and responds to the environment, as opposed to just reacting. Whatever hits them, they move. We know some people like that, and hopefully we're not like that, but sometimes we are. So, we've got the ability to react. If a gun shot off, that's the body's protecting itself. We've got to have that mechanism. And yet to be that way all the time, we're not honoring our capacity as humans. And as humans, we have the capacity to decide. We have the capacity to critically think, to inform our decision. We have the capacity to trust ourselves as we develop more and more and more, and we have much more capacity. So using these mental faculties to really inform how we think, to reinforce a new habit, impress it on the subconscious mind, that we create a certain vibration, and then all of a sudden that vibration leads to the right kind of action because there's congruency between the thought and the feelings. And the feelings become even more intense as the thoughts are what we want, that we value, that we appreciate, that excites us. And then all of a sudden, we jump up out of bed in the morning. We don't just take our time. Oh my God, alarm went up. I need another 5 minutes. You jump out of the bed because you got that excitement. I'm going to be facilitating. Oh my goodness, I'm going to coach. I'm going to inspire. I'm going to mentor. All those wonderful feelings come up, even if you don't have the words for them, because you have imprinted on your mind that as a leader, I am developing remarkable leaders who will, each one of them, wherever they're at within the organization, they are going to take responsibility for the vision of this organization. They will operationalize goals that work for them to ensure the mission of the organization is achieved. They will live the values. So everyone who interacts with anyone who works for this organization or somehow associated with it will know the nature of our organization because of the way each person functions, let alone an entrepreneur. Oh my goodness. You being the CEO of your own business, sister, remarkable you are. So many of you, you're knocking it out the park. Yet if you, and when you want to shift, you want things to happen that have never happened before, think about how to shift from one paradigm to a new. And remember what a paradigm is. Go back to this video, review it, listen. Let me tell you that your results will be reinforced by life itself. The universe will give you all kinds of feedback that ultimately affirms you. It's akin to, you think about a sister and she calls and like, oh my God, I was just thinking about you. Well, you put it out there. In the same way, when you brilliantly create your vision, you wrote it down, you create a plan, and now you feel it. The universe is experiencing that level of vibration. We only grow, we only develop, we only achieve to the level of our vibration. If our vibratory pattern is here, the life itself will give us everything that aligns with that. I don't care where it is. If our vibratory patterns are here, life will complement us. Our vibratory patterns are here. The universe will meet us here. So we're talking about here enhancing the level of vibration because of your clarity, your emotions align with that, clarity of thinking, emotions align with that, your actions reflect that, and then you get reinforcement. And anything that doesn't compliment you, like I don't care if it's a loved one, I read, especially if it's a loved one, because loved ones hits us and they get us emotionally. They can't see your vision. Honor them, love them anyway, keep moving, and get them out of your space as long as you can. Still love them, be there if they need you, if you want to be. But make certain that you are not encumbered by their negative perceptions of what you want to do. Do it. I got to tell you, I tell people most of the things I've accomplished in my life, actually, all the things I've accomplished in my life, I strive to do it before I told people. And when I accomplished, it didn't matter what it was. I would go to people and say, I'm thinking about doing something, whatever it is, getting in, being admitted to this PhD program or whatever. It doesn't really matter. To the person, and I knew these people valued me. To the person, they were like, they don't hire people there. Oh, they got too many applications in the case of the PhD program. Maybe you ought to consider another school that's not a top-rated school in the country or on the planet. Blah, blah, blah. All that rational feedback. And the good news is that I didn't leverage their feedback before I did it because it was dispiriting what I heard. And they cared about me. They still do care about me. They valued me. And some of them I told them right away. Others I waited and I let them know I'd already achieved it. And they were like, oh, well, I knew. Well, of course, you're brilliant. Let me just tell you something. People, when they say something to you, even if it's a compliment, it's likely more a reflection of how they feel about themselves and what's going on in their lives than it is about you. I just want you to remember that. It typically is more about them than it is about you. I want you to remember that. Honor it and receive it if it's constructive feedback, because it may be invaluable to you. They help you. Honor it, receive it as they're complimenting you, as it may add your edifying your spirit, your well-being, your emotional well-being. Yet recognize that if you take everything that's external and say, I'm dependent upon that in order for me to be okay, you're setting yourself up to be for major sabotage. And it's a personal decision. It's not the outside world doing it to you, it's you. So what we're always about is asking you and encouraging you, imploring you to go within to understand the self, to leverage the self. There'll be plenty of comments, good, better, and different. And so you leverage if they work. Good. You're deciding, you're thinking, you're discerning. And then you're deciding, does that work for me in this context? If it does, leverage it and move forward. If it doesn't, put it on the shelf because it may work later on. If it doesn't at all, please dump it and run from it fast, at least emotionally and intellectually. So going back to this visual, these key universal laws, they're just among the tip of the iceberg. When you leverage them, you find that your power is absolutely off the charts. And people are trying to harm you, you're like, you wish them well. You don't go there, you just wish them well. People are trying to make you more than what you are, you honor them. You honor their aspiration for you. You stay centered in who you are. You keep moving. You remain humble and allow the universe to give you what you want, not what the outside world dictates, and expect to get what you want. Be careful because you're going to get what you ask for, all the consequences and all the challenges too. Here are the mental tools illuminated. Will. Will. Everyone who's viewing this video live or in the future, let me tell you, will. We all have it. We all have all of these mental tools. And what did I write below? All of our higher faculties are perfect. and they require exercise to strengthen them. Also, from several individuals who I value. The more you use these mental tools, the stronger your mental faculties become, which can be extraordinary. People will think, "Oh my God, are you using telepathy? Are you just using your remarkable mental tools?" And literally, they're aligned with being so-called psychic or telepathic, etc. We all have these remarkable capacities. No one gives them to us. We're born with them. And we're born differently, even with the same parents. And we choose different directions based upon our reactions or responses. Reactions are literally we're not thinking. Responses, we're being much more thoughtful. We're thinking about what works for us. We react, we respond. We react, we respond. Reaction is critical. We need to be able to react in an instant. But when we do that with everything, we're not leading. When we respond and we're being strategic, oh my goodness, the world is our vista. That's not the only thing we need. These mental tools equip us. Will what? Give us the ability to focus, to concentrate. I remember I was working on my dissertation and some of the most egregious things were happening around me. I was so focused. I wrote that dissertation in 31 or 33 days. It was weird. I didn't know what I was doing other than I was focused. I was driven. I had all these books were lined up on a multi-level cart, and I had my computer there. I would roll it down to a room down the hall, and I would study during the day. I had a regimen. Got up in the morning. I ran the track. I ate a little bit. Took a shower, ate a little bit, and studied. If I couldn't read, I wrote. If I couldn't write and read, I thought. And I put my thoughts down in this binder, and this binder grew in terms of content. And I put whatever was in the computer, ended up having over 300 pages of stuff. If you told me I'd had that, I would be like, what are you talking about? What do you Yet 31 or 33 days later, I'm looking at this. Oh my goodness, now I got to find an editor. And then the story goes. There was no editors around. There was over 60 editors, and all of them were booked. And that was its own challenge. But the power of intensity, focus, that's the will. That's the will. That is the will. And I want to talk about two others. Reason gives us the ability to think, which is our highest function. Reason gives us the ability to think, which is our highest function. Whether it's inductive reasoning, you understand that you literally can take in information and process it and not just literally react to it because you found it on the internet or someone told you and it sounded compelling or you believe that person. You are literally using your own capacity to discern, to use sound judgment. It's your cognitive capacity, your cognitive tools. And then intuition. Most people think this is an emotional part of it. I think everything is interrelated. And yet intuition is definitely a mental faculty. So this is where you know what you know, and you need no evidence. It's like feeling or hearing a voice or feeling a feeling. It says, don't go right. And so go left. And going right will get you to your destination like that in less than 5 minutes. Going left is going to take you a half an hour. And you follow your intuition. You don't know what the deal was going right. Another time, you go right when your intuition says, nope, go left. And guess what? You should have gotten there in 5 minutes, but it takes you 2 hours because there was a major accident. I'm sure most of you know this because we all have intuition. We don't all honor it because we think it's somewhat foreign from the human condition. We think we've got to be weird or some other being. We all have intuition. And the degree to which we listen to it, we hone it, like the other mental tools, we get more remarkable. And as a leader, oh my God, we can sense what's going on with our team long before it happens. And so we can appropriately engage in actions that will actually ensure that constraint, that major event that would destroy the team or harm the team doesn't happen. Intuition is powerful, folks. I'm sharing this. I want you to take a screenshot if you're so interested. Feel free to call me or my team. We're available to help. Yet I want to go further and say that your paradigm is really powerful. And so it will ensure that you can do anything you want to do. Hopefully, things that are healthy, that will add value to you, your family, neighborhood, community, business, society, the planet. Using your power perception, your time, your creativity, and all of us are creative, and the degree to which you use your mental tools, that creativity will take off. And your feelings align with that, your emotional state, you will take off. All that improves your effectiveness and productivity. And people say, well, how do I make the change that I be the change I want to experience? How do I move from one paradigm to the other? Well, first of all, just imagine it. Imagine getting off on the other side of the bed than the side that you've always gotten off. Well, my husband or my wife is there, or my the wall's there. Well, think about changing the way the bed is situated in the room if you want to get off on the other side. Change. uh, I've always performed at a certain level in terms of exams and tests, and that's the best I can do. Paradigm. Paradigm. We've used some basic principles with K through 12 youth who failed in school for years and were considered to be it's not possible for them to be a successful learner. We use some of the same material, colleagues across the globe, in other countries, and in the United States. And those individuals within a few months were earning A's. And the A's were not the deal. It wasn't about the grades, because the grades are temporary and they're not really that substantive. They were learning. And what I used to tell people, be less concerned about the grades, be more concerned about learning. When you know the subject matter, when you know the content, when you know how to do things, forget about it. The grades come. And yet most of us are concerned about an outcome that really has less value in the long run. In the long run, does someone say, well, what grade did you get in the fourth grade? Or what degree did you earn when you're working in industry for years? No, they ask you, what did you accomplish? And you accomplish based upon what you knew and what you actually did. And there's another thing that someone asked me about recently. It's about the importance of being successful. And I listened. And what I was hearing from her was, you can't fail. And so I picked that up intuitively. She didn't say that explicitly. And I said, the powerful thing about being in all kinds of roles is that not only can we lead in all roles, and we should lead in all roles, is that we get to fail forward. And she goes, oh my God, what do you mean by that? I never heard that. And someone else said that to me recently. I never heard fail forward. I said, we get to fail forward. We get to experiment. We get to be creative. We don't know what we don't know until we know it. And so if we're only doing things on the margin because we want to be successful 100% of the time, then we really won't achieve anything other than we already achieved. Let's be clear. The way to achieve massively is to move in and to fail forward. And there's someone else who's a colleague, just met recently in the last few months. He and his wife are remarkable. And he said, he referenced a book that's about looking for failures. So going out, not looking for failures, but looking for no's, going out, his name escapes me. It's the other tip of my tongue. In any event, starts with a C, but so sorry, Mr. Taylor. Any event, the emphasis on person going marketing and selling rather than going out and wanting to be perfect and everyone saying, yeah, go out looking for no's. Seek 3 no's minimum a day. And then all of a sudden, there's just relief of the pressure of, oh my goodness, everyone has to say yes. Well, when we understand that our lives are best situated, leadership is best situated when we allow ourselves to experience some level of risk. I know it's going to be strategic risk, but That's defined differently depending upon the environment. The person who goes out and they create a lake out of a lagoon, unless they've had some previous experience with it, going to experience some missteps. And yet that particular community needs that done for a particular reason. So they bring in the folks the best they can. They do what they could do. And then there are other people who come in. They have a high level of expertise. They help to clean up areas and provide some guidance to the individuals who initially created it. When the organization that sponsored it all didn't have enough money to bring in the experts to begin with. And then the learnings grow and grow if, in fact, the environment is structured in a way where the original folks who built it learn from the experience, and then the folks who come in to reinforce it share that learning with those who built it, and then the story continues. In a comparable way, leadership, when it's done well, you don't assume people to be perfect. You assume them to be who they are, to have strengths and weaknesses, and not all weaknesses have to be worked on, only those that are applicable. And then you guide and you create opportunities for the team, whether it's a team of 3, a team of 50, or a team of 10,000 or 100,000. You find opportunities, and yes, you can create those teams, really functional, effective teams that are inspirational, that guide, that support, where the strengths of aspects of individuals are complemented in a way where those who have weaknesses, those areas, are learning. And likewise, those who have weaknesses in particular areas, they're sharing strengths that they have that those with the strengths in the other areas do not have. All of a sudden, you have growth. You don't have everyone who's at this level only interacting with those at this level. Then what you've created is a bifurcated organization, or even worse, an organization that doesn't honor all of its employees. And then you lose some good, remarkable assets among what people call human capital, among people, among humans, because they weren't valued to begin with, and they're often going. So the question is, how can a leader make the paradigm shift herself or himself in a way where they're honoring themselves and they're moving forward, leaning in, and even experiencing some failed attempts initially, yet helping all those within her sphere to develop the leadership capacity as well. I have intensity around here, around this subject, and there's so much more to share. And my hope is that in the process of this, is that you do more than when it comes to leading, or even understanding your own leadership capacity, that you lean in and that you guard against doing what Joseph Campbell said, which is cave into any fear, enter your fear, which holds the treasure that you seek. Another thing that I'd like to reference is that when we move in a direction that we've never moved before, there will be some internal terror, if not expressed externally. And I got to tell you, just know that it's normal. When we make a decision, and because we're thinking, we're using our thinking capacity, all decisions come with them some kind of, especially when they're big decisions, they come with some learning, and typically many learnings from challenges, which are really explicit, I think, opportunities for us to grow and lean in even more, develop as leaders even more. Just remember that the conscious mind accepts or rejects, it chooses. That's why thinking is so critical. Not everything that comes in that we hear, smell, taste, touch, feel should be received. The subconscious mind can't choose. It must accept everything. And if you're just receiving everything without a filter, without thinking, your subconscious mind is reacting all day long. The subconscious mind cannot differentiate between what is real and what's imagined. Now, that's part of the power of one of your mental tools, our mental tools, imagination. As we imagine, oh my gosh, we get to shift the subconscious mind in any way we want. That's why they say, put together your visual, or you can see it every day, of where you are headed, you want to go. And even if you see it for years and you put it, put it in a box because you're moving, and you take it out of the box and you 10, 15, 20 years later, you're like, oh my God, I'm living what I envisioned years ago. That's the power of imagination. It's also the power of other mental tools, all in sync. So the biggest takeaway here is paradigms, paradigms, paradigms. We all are living in a paradigm. And we get to live in the paradigm of our own making when we choose. And hopefully you're doing that. And don't guard against defaulting to school, because the formal educational systems across most of the planet really give us knowledge, and they test us on the knowledge and sometimes on skills. Knowledge and skills are not a reflection of what we ultimately end up doing often. So that's why a lot of folks have remarkable degrees, or they were brilliant in grade school, and yet they're not living up to their capacity. Paradigms say you shift out of that old paradigm of thinking, because I earned a degree, I earned a grade, I'm going to be extraordinary. It has nothing to do with it. There are people who are functionally illiterate, who are multimillionaires, who are making a difference, who are influencing elected officials, who are building capacity for communities. It's not about that, folks. It's really living in sync with the universal laws, which we'll spend more time on in a subsequent session. And it's using your mental and your subconscious mind, your mental faculties in sync with your subconscious mind. I call it the mind-heart connection, in order to drive to get to the place where you want to get to. Mind, body. This is the last thing I'll share as we bring this down, although it's not the last thing I wanted to share. One of the physicists of past often quoted, everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get the reality. It can be no other way. This is not philosophy, this is physics. Albert Einstein. Success is 95% mindset and 5% strategy. And my closing thought to one of my mentors, he shared, it's all in awareness. There's a marvelous inner world that exists within us, and the revelation of such a world enables us to attain and achieve anything we desire within the bounds or limits of nature. We are part of nature. We get to desire as much as we want. The degree to which is a burning desire aligned with our thinking faculties, we can knock it out the park all the time. And here at Lead Live, we want each one of us to knock it out the park for ourselves, for our families, for our communities, for humanity. Always with gratitude and deep appreciation for each one of you. Live because you can now. Why don't?